What would you think if I told you that nothing in your life is fixed? Not your past, not your identity, not even the world that appears so solid beneath your feet. That every outcome, every circumstance, every so-called coincidence is not happening to you, but is responding to you. Not the surface you, not the mask you wear, or the stories you tell yourself, but the frequency of your presence, the signature of your emotional field, the rhythm of the thoughts you repeat when no one is watching. In the quantum field, nothing exists until something is observed, and yet most humans are not observing. They are remembering. They're scanning the present for familiar pain and calling it reality. They are holding the lens of trauma, like a telescope, and wondering why the stars never change. Pause for a moment and look deeper. Not outward, but inward. What you call your life is a dance of waves and particles collapsing in and out of form, an invisible sea of potential obeying the subtle commands of your attention. Every emotion you feel is a signal. Every belief you carry is a broadcast. Every moment of presence is a sacred dial tuning you into timelines that already exist. You do not create from effort. You create from resonance. And your most silent thoughts, the ones soaked in repetition, in ache, in unresolved yearning, are the architects of your unfolding now. This is not mysticism. This is quantum mechanics, wearing the robe of mystic clarity. If this is already shifting how you see your reality, type "I am the observer" in the comments. It's time others awaken with you. Share this message if you feel the truth stirring. The observer collapses the wave. This is not poetic license. It is physics. The double-slit experiment did not only change how scientists saw matter, it shattered the illusion of separateness between the seer and the seen. In the presence of consciousness, possibility chooses. It localizes, it becomes. And yet, what few understand is that observation is not simply looking. It is believing. It is emotionally investing in what one sees as true. This is why most people recreate their suffering. They observe through the filter of fear. They expect betrayal, and so particles conspire to fulfill it. They expect struggle, and so the universe, in its unconditional obedience, matches their expectation with exquisite precision. To manipulate energy, you must first manipulate the self that is doing the observing, not with force, but with awareness. Not by escaping the emotion, but by transmuting its frequency. If you stand before a mirror and scowl, the reflection does not smile. If you radiate gratitude, the field becomes coherent. This is how you shift reality, not by forcing the world to bend, but by shifting the lens through which the world is collapsed. The quantum field is not changed by action. It is changed by presence, and the most potent form of presence is stillness, wrapped in knowing. The universe does not hear your words. It hears your vibration. It does not respond to your timeline. It responds to your signature. And so when you declare, "I want change," but vibrate lack, the field cannot help you. Not because it refuses, but because it cannot lie. It is a perfect mirror. This is why the ancient sages spoke of being before doing. This is why the mystics turned inward before outward. To manipulate energy is to speak the language of the universe. Emotion, frequency, image, belief. Words are secondary. Thought is the skeleton, but feeling is the breath. You are not waiting on a shift. The shift is waiting on your coherence. When the heart and mind enter alignment, the nervous system enters harmony. This is not metaphor. This is neuroelectric truth. When the brain stops firing in contradiction, when the heart stops beating in fear, the body becomes a tuning fork. Reality begins to respond, not in fragments, but in waves of synchronicity. You notice the right people, the right door, the right whisper at the right time. But nothing arrives until the inner world is congruent. This is the hidden architecture of change. Identity is frequency. The you who feels powerless is not a character trait. It is a vibrational state. Shift that state, and the world you think you know begins to look back at you with new eyes. This is how timelines are selected. You do not leap into parallel realities by wishing. You enter them by remembering who you were before fear painted over your possibility. There is a version of you that already lives in the reality you dream of. And the bridge is not effort. It is resonance. You must become emotionally indistinguishable from that version before anything changes. Let go of the struggle. Struggle is a frequency. Desperation is a frequency. They signal incoherence to the field. You cannot beg your way into a miracle, but you can align yourself with it through stillness, through surrender, through the soft but relentless act of observing as if it is already so. Faith is not a belief in the unseen. It is emotional alignment with the unseen. It is being moved by what the eye cannot yet grasp. That is how quantum events are born, not by action, but by embodiment. So now, ask yourself, what are you actually observing all day? Not just with your eyes, but with your focus, with your story, with your nervous system. What vibration are you teaching the field to repeat? You are not a victim of reality. You are its artist. You are not here to fix what's broken. You are here to remember that, in the quantum field, nothing is broken, only rehearsed. Change your rehearsal. Become still, become silent, and observe as one who already knows. Because the field is listening, and the next quantum event is already waiting for your signal. There is a silence deeper than thought, a space where the self becomes translucent and the mind no longer grasps, but witnesses. This is where creation begins. Not with intention shouted from a place of need, but with the whisper of alignment. In this silence, you are no longer a character in the story, but the page itself. The observer becomes the canvas upon which all things are written. And this canvas is not passive. It is intelligent. It responds not to what you say, but to what you are. What you embody in the marrow of your moments echoes across unseen dimensions. This is the origin of the miraculous. When one learns to rest in that still, observing state, they become a node of coherence in a sea of static. Everything begins to respond differently. Time loosens its grip. People behave like mirrors. Circumstances rearrange, but most miss this shift because they are too busy searching for signs, unaware that the search itself is a vibration of lack. Presence, not pursuit, is the real invitation. And presence, when pure, is indistinguishable from faith. Not the faith of hope, but the faith of knowing. A deep and cellular certainty that reality is bending even when it looks still. Neuroscience has long shown us that the brain does not distinguish between what is imagined and what is experienced. To the neurons, there is no fiction. So, when you consistently feel into the energy of a future event, as if it is now, you begin to rewire the very structures that define your perception of what's real. This is not fantasy. It is neuroplasticity. It is the brain becoming the servant of the soul's directive. The body, over time, begins to chemically embody this new truth, and reality, like a loyal echo, begins to respond in kind. But the key is repetition with emotion. Repetition alone is mechanical, but repetition soaked in emotion becomes spiritual electricity. It charges the signal. It amplifies the broadcast. The field listens closely to your emotional tone. Because energy is never neutral, it carries instruction. This is why fear repeats itself. Because fear is an obsessive broadcaster. And this is why love, when chosen deliberately, collapses reality into beauty. Love is the original frequency. When your emotional signal harmonizes with it, the entire field remembers what it came to deliver. You are not summoning energy. You are becoming a match to it. Energy cannot lie. It simply moves toward resonance. And the most potent frequency of all is not joy, not passion, not ambition. It is gratitude. True gratitude, the kind that is not contingent on evidence, but that flows from the awareness that you are already part of the miracle. Gratitude is the announcement to the quantum field that the event has already occurred. It tells the mirror to reflect the blessing. It makes the invisible become visible. The reason most people stay stuck is not because the shift is far. It is because the self they identify with cannot cross the threshold. They are trying to carry old frequency into a new field, and the field resists not out of cruelty, but out of order. Incoherent frequencies cannot sustain higher timelines. The price of a new reality is the death of the old identity. This is why transformation feels like loss. You are not losing what is real. You are losing what was rehearsed, and in the space left behind, something unthinkably pure is waiting to be born. To manipulate energy is not to control. It is to surrender with intention. It is not about domination, but about understanding. The seed does not push the soil. It simply holds its code and lets the environment respond. You are that seed, and the environment you must shape is not the world, but your own field, your thoughts, your feelings, your expectations. Tend to them as a gardener does to sacred earth, knowing that unseen roots are growing every time you choose inner coherence over chaos. Identity is the doorway, not the outer name, but the felt sense of who you are in each moment. Are you a victim, a survivor, a seeker, or a creator? These are not roles, they are frequencies. And the universe responds not to words, but to the inner identity you radiate. If you walk as though you already belong in your chosen timeline, the field has no choice but to deliver the events that match. But if you beg for change while vibrating doubt, you are only reaffirming the gap. Identity is not a costume you wear. It is a vibration you embody. The greatest manipulator of energy is stillness. Not apathy, not resignation, but that sacred stillness that holds the posture of trust, the kind that says, "It is already so," and lives as if the answer has arrived. From that stillness comes clarity. From that clarity comes movement, not chaotic action, but precision steps guided by intuition. This is how quantum events unfold. Not in storms, but in ripples that become waves that become worlds. But stillness must be chosen. It does not arrive by accident. It is cultivated like firelight in the dark. So begin here, not with striving, but with listening. Listen to the thoughts that loop, the feelings that tighten, the stories that haunt. They are not enemies. They are frequencies calling to be integrated. And as you observe them without resistance, you begin to soften. You begin to unhook from the identity that was never yours to carry. And in that sacred space of softening, the field begins to change. You are no longer reacting. You are selecting. And that is where true power lives, in the silent, sacred choice to become the one who chooses. There is a moment, so subtle it often passes unnoticed, when energy begins to respond, not to the noise of thought, but to the texture of being. That moment is the pivot, the crossing, the instant when you stop creating from memory and begin creating from awareness. Most people are trapped in cycles, not because the world is cruel, but because their nervous system is loyal to the past. Their energy is rehearsing an identity that no longer exists. And yet the quantum field, impartial and exact, continues to echo that frequency without error. It cannot give you what you hope for. It can only give you what you are. The body is a recorder of repetition. It becomes addicted not just to patterns of action, but to the chemicals released by specific emotions. This is why some people unconsciously recreate pain. It is the emotional signature their cells recognize. Even suffering becomes familiar. And what is familiar feels safe. But safety is not the same as expansion. To change your energy, you must become aware of the body's addiction to the old story. You must interrupt the chemistry with new imagery, new intention, new emotional instructions. Otherwise, the past becomes the author of your future. Energy responds faster than time. This is the secret most have not grasped. Time is a secondary effect, a lagging indicator. But energy moves at the speed of emotion. The moment you feel differently, truly, deeply, the field begins to shift. It does not need proof. It does not require logic. It listens only to signal. And so you must become a master of inner signal. Not by pretending, but by practicing. By feeling, in the stillness of your being, the texture of the life you are summoning. By living the vibration before the evidence arrives. Creation is not a forceful act. It is an alignment, a merging, a moment in which the self becomes indistinct from the reality it desires. There is no gap in that moment. No distance, just coherence. And coherence is the language of the quantum field. It is the harmony between thought, feeling, and biology. When your inner state sings the same song in all its parts, the world has no choice but to dance in response. This is not a metaphor. It is a... The observer effect is not about looking with the eyes. It is about being with intention. It is about holding a frequency so steady that the particles of possibility collapse into form, but few can hold it. Not because they lack power, but because they keep checking. They check the clock, they check the mirror, they check for signs, and every time they check, they doubt. And every doubt resets the wave. The secret is to stop checking and start becoming, to live as though it already is. Because in the field, it already is. You do not summon miracles through willpower. You receive them by becoming a vibrational match. And becoming is not an act. It is a surrender to the self that already exists in the version of reality you are calling in. That self does not fight. That self does not beg. That self knows. And so, you must begin to practice that knowing. Not once, not when convenient, but until it becomes your new baseline. That is when the field takes notice. That is when quantum events arrive, not as exceptions, but as inevitability. The field does not punish or reward. It reflects, it magnifies, it mirrors. And so the work is not to fix the world. It is to cleanse the lens. The clearer your signal, the more accurate the response. This is why clarity is power. Not clarity of plan, but clarity of presence, a stillness that cuts through noise, a calmness that commands. When you walk in that frequency, mountains move, and obstacles dissolve, not because you pushed harder, but because you stopped being the version of you that needed to push it all. The unconscious mind is the true projector. 95% of what you experience is shaped by the programs running beneath your awareness. And these programs are not malicious, they are simply rehearsed, born from trauma, repetition, culture, and story. But they are not permanent. They are plastic, moldable, rewritable. And the tool for rewriting is conscious, emotional practice. The way you feel daily is the code, and the field reads that code and responds with uncanny precision. This is how reality is made from the inside out by the story your nervous system believes is true. You do not change reality by shouting louder. You change it by changing the frequency of the witness. And the witness is you, the deep you. The you beneath the personality, beneath the patterns, that silent self, the one who sees without judging, the one who watches the mind spin but does not spin with it. That is the true manipulator of energy. And when you learn to rest in that self, even for moments, reality bends. It softens, it reshapes, because reality is not fixed, it is fluid, molded by emotion, expectation, and attention. And your power is not in forcing form, but in sculpting frequency. You are not here to chase outcomes. You are here to tune the instrument of your being. And when your tune matches the music of the life you desire, the entire universe leans in and begins to play along. There comes a point in every seeker's journey when they must stop chasing evidence and start embodying essence, to become the vibration of what they seek without needing to see it first. This is where many falter, because the mind craves confirmation. It wants the world to change, so it can finally believe. But that is not how the field works. The field does not respond to doubt disguised as hope. It moves for certainty, and certainty is not loud. It does not plead. It is a quiet, rooted presence that declares without sound, I know. This knowing is not intellectual. It is energetic. It lives in the space between thoughts. It emerges when the mind softens and the body becomes a vessel of still trust. It is the knowing of the tree that stands through winter, unmoved by the absence of leaves, because it remembers the code in its roots. You too carry such a code, a signature etched into the blueprint of your being. But to activate it, you must stop identifying with the self that doubts, the self that watches the clock and scans for lack. That self is a program, not a truth. Let it dissolve. The power of your energy lies not in intensity, but in coherence. A single clear signal is more potent than 1,000 scattered thoughts. When your mind, heart, and body vibrate in agreement, you become a beacon, and reality rushes to meet you. This is not manifestation, it is selection. You are selecting the timeline that already holds what you desire, and you select it not with effort, but with resonance. The vibration you live is the timeline you inhabit. If you want to change your life, you must first change your signal. Neural coherence is the brain's song of alignment. When your thoughts are scattered, your brain waves are chaotic. Your nervous system is on edge. Your body prepares for war. But when you enter stillness, when you choose gratitude, when you feel love without condition, the brain calms. It synchronizes. It becomes a tuning fork for divine intelligence. In that state, you are no longer reacting. You are creating. The electromagnetic field around your heart expands. You emit order into the quantum sea, and that order, that harmony, becomes the attractor of miracle. The quantum field is a mirror of emotion. Every feeling you repeat becomes a gravitational center. If you live in fear, you draw more evidence of fear. If you live in joy, joy finds you. Not as luck, but as law. Energy seeks its likeness. Vibration follows its twin. And so the work is not to hunt opportunity, but to cultivate the emotion that matches it. You must become, at the deepest level, the version of yourself that no longer needs the thing you once chased. Because when you become the one who already has it, the field collapses the illusion of distance. This is the paradox of creation. The less you need it, the faster it comes. Need is a frequency of separation. It signals that something is missing. But wholeness is magnetic. When you radiate completeness, the universe rushes to reflect it, not because you're demanding it, but because you're no longer blocking it. Most delay their shift by clinging too tightly. They grip timelines with anxious fists. But energy flows where there is openness. You must become a space for the miracle, not a cage. Stillness is not inaction. It is inner congruence. It is the moment when the waves stop crashing and the water becomes glass. In that stillness, you see clearly. You hear the whisper of the field. You feel the direction of flow. Action taken from stillness is powerful. It is not random. It is not desperate. It is precise, effortless, timely. That is inspired action, the movement of a being who knows. And that knowing comes from trust, not logic. The field responds to the tone of your choices, not the volume of your efforts. You do not change reality by fixing broken things. You change reality by stepping into a version where the thing was never broken. This requires imagination that feels like memory. Visualization that breathes like presence. You must walk through your day as though you have already arrived, not to trick the universe, but to remind it of who you really are. The field does not discriminate between fantasy and fact. It listens only to frequency. Walk like one who already is, and reality will forget that it ever wasn't. Energy manipulation is the art of invisible architecture. You are constantly designing structures the world cannot yet see. Every thought, a beam. Every feeling, a wall. Every belief, a doorway. And the more emotionally invested you are, the more solid the structure becomes. But beware, you are always building something. Whether in joy or pain, love or fear, the architecture grows. So choose your materials wisely. Feel on purpose. Believe deliberately. You are the architect of future. And in this moment, yes, this breath, you are standing at the intersection of infinite timelines. They swirl around you like unchosen songs, each waiting for your signal, each ready to bloom the moment you decide to live as if it's already so. This is the quantum invitation, and it is not whispered to the mind, it is felt in the body, in the soul, in the vibration of your unshakable knowing. There is a truth that the ancient mystics knew long before science dared to echo it. You are not inside the world. The world is inside your consciousness. Not metaphorically, but energetically. The field around you is not a passive backdrop. It is a participatory mirror. It listens, echoes, and returns every emotional signal you release. But most release without awareness. They emit frequencies of fear, scarcity, and doubt, and then wonder why life feels heavy. The answer is not punishment. It is precision. The universe is precise. Every outcome is the echo of an inner state, not a random storm. To shift your world, you must begin to take sacred responsibility for the quality of your signal. Not just in moments of meditation, but in your walk, your thoughts, your tone, your breath. Each moment is a transmitter. And the signal is not in your words, it is in your consistency. Do you live the frequency of peace when no one is looking? Do you feel the vibration of abundance when your hands are empty? That is the test. That is the tuning. And that is what reshapes timelines, not declarations made once, but identities lived daily. When you manipulate energy consciously, you begin to move differently. You speak less, but your presence says more. You walk into rooms, and the atmosphere shifts. Not because you force it, but because you are aligned. Alignment is invisible power. It is the unspoken language of creation, and those who master it do not chase. They attract, not out of entitlement, but because their vibration has become a home for what they once sought. The field flows toward clarity. And you, when still and certain, become that clarity. The unconscious mind speaks the oldest dialect of all pattern. And unless it is reprogrammed, it will replay the same narrative across every new opportunity. That is why transformation must include the body. You cannot simply think new thoughts. You must feel new truths. You must allow the nervous system to become familiar with safety, with joy, with having. Until then, it will reject the new timeline as foreign. But when you teach the body a new emotional baseline, the timeline will feel inevitable. The manipulation of energy begins as art, but becomes science. Emotion is not random, it is electrical. The heart emits measurable waves. The brain responds. The field records. Your emotions are the electricity that tells the field which circuit to activate. And if you short-circuit your frequency with anxiety, self-doubt, or chronic disappointment, the flow collapses. But when you stay steady, when you feel elevated emotion for no external reason, the circuit stabilizes. The field begins to hold the charge, and reality responds not just once, but consistently. Timelines are not distances, they are vibrations, and you can shift between them without moving an inch. You don't need a new job, a new city, or a new partner to change your life. You need a new frequency. The moment you feel differently, the architecture of your world begins to reform. The same street looks different. The same people treat you differently. The same opportunities suddenly appear. Nothing outside changed, but everything shifted because your signal did. The soul does not rush. It knows that energy manipulated from stillness is more effective than forceful action. When you stop reacting and begin responding with presence, you take your seat as creator. This is where choice becomes sacred. You choose your frequency like an artist selects a brushstroke, and with each choice, you summon a new thread of possibility. Over time, those threads weave a reality that no longer matches your past. You no longer recognize the pain that once defined you. It fades, not because you fought it, but because you stopped feeding it your frequency. The old self will resist. It will whisper stories of danger, of rejection, of failure, not because it is evil, but because it is loyal to your survival. But you are not here to survive. You are here to expand, to express, to create. And the moment you thank the old self for its service and stop identifying with it, the resistance begins to fall away. You are no longer trapped in its echo. You have stepped into a field that vibrates beyond it. You are not meant to constantly affirm what you want. You are meant to become it. And becoming is not about effort. It is about releasing everything that contradicts the version of you who already lives in that reality. Let go of the urgency. Let go of the checklist. Let go of the need to prove. These are frequencies of delay. Instead, embody ease. Choose stillness. Live as though the field is your partner, not your opponent, because it is. And when you truly understand this, you will stop chasing quantum events and begin creating them. Daily, silently, effortlessly. Not as magic tricks, but as natural extensions of your coherence. You are the portal, the observer, the frequency, the field. And when you remember this, the universe cannot help but move in your favor. There is a stillness beyond thought where all things become clear. A place where the identity dissolves, where time pauses, and where you remember, you are not just living in a universe, you are participating in the breath of creation itself. This is where manipulation of energy becomes communion with the source. It is no longer about desire or achievement. It becomes a quiet agreement between your soul and the infinite, that you will no longer resist what you are. You will allow yourself to become it, without delay, without disguise. You are not meant to manifest from emptiness, but from overflow, not from lack, but from remembrance. You came into this life encoded with frequencies that resonate with worlds you haven't even imagined yet. Every glimpse, every desire, every yearning is a breadcrumb, a signature of a timeline that already exists. And you are not waiting on it. It is waiting on you. Not the scattered you, not the striving you, but the one who listens, the one who no longer needs proof to believe, the one who has stopped reacting to the illusion and begun living the truth. Reality responds to who you are when no one is watching. It mirrors the quiet you, the sacred you, the you that breathes with awareness, even when things seem still. This is why the most powerful shifts are not loud. They are born in silent decisions. Subtle observations, tiny moments of choosing coherence when chaos beckons. Each choice is a ripple, each ripple alters the field. And when the field shifts, reality bends. To become a master of energy is not to become a master of control. It is to become a master of surrender, but not the surrender of weakness. The surrender of precision, the kind of surrender that knows when to act and when to rest, when to speak and when to observe, when to move forward and when to let the universe lead. This rhythm, once felt, becomes the rhythm of the quantum self. You are no longer reacting to reality. You are moving with it, like a dancer who no longer counts steps, but flows with the music that only she can hear. When you collapse the wave with your observation, you are not choosing randomly. You are selecting through identity. The observer you are determines the reality that appears. This is why changing your life means changing the version of you who lives it. Not just what you believe, but what you expect, what you emotionally anticipate, what you feel safe receiving. And until that self is born, the new timeline remains in orbit, close, yet unreachable. But when that self takes root, the shift is effortless. Reality opens like a curtain, revealing a stage you forgot you built. And what is effort without energy? It is friction. It is distortion. But when your energy flows in alignment, effort becomes art. It becomes movement, with momentum behind it. Life stops feeling like a struggle and begins to feel like a current. And all you must do is stay in resonance with the version of yourself who knows this. You are not meant to push the river. You are meant to become the water. Most people will never understand this because they are addicted to striving. They fear stillness. They do not trust that doing less could bring more. But energy does not reward busyness. It rewards clarity, precision, frequency. When your signal is clean, the return is clean. When your intention is pure, the outcome is swift. This is not wishful thinking. It is sacred science. A law older than words, waiting to be remembered. You are the still point in the storm, the silent witness through whom the world rearranges. When you truly embody this, quantum events no longer surprise you. They become your language, your rhythm, your way of navigating life. Doors open before you ask. People arrive when your heart expands. Answers whisper when you stop shouting. This is the way of the silent creator, the one who moves reality with presence, not pressure. And now you are being asked to choose, not with desperation, but with devotion, to select the self you will live from, to radiate the frequency you will teach the field to echo, to no longer ask, when will it happen? But instead to declare, it already has. And from that declaration, breathe differently. Walk differently. See differently. Because the moment you do, you begin to collapse the version of reality that cannot hold your expansion. And the quantum event appears, not from luck, but from law. Reality doesn't shift when you force it. It shifts when you observe differently.